My involvement with the United Nations began with a letter which I will give to the committee from the ambassador to the United Nations from Sweden. And it's a long letter and a very beautifully written letter. And essentially, he read an article about the success of Trump World Tower, which is the building that I can show you right here. Which is, as you can see, very, very substantially taller than the United Nations, bigger than the United Nations. And he read an article in the New York Times saying that the building cost approximately $300 million to build. So he wrote me a letter and ultimately called me and said, is it possible that that building cost $300 million? Because it just seems so much bigger and so much better and so much more expensive and so much more luxurious. And how could you have done that for $300 million when at that time, Senator, they were talking about $1.5 billion to renovate the United Nations, and this was around December of 2000. And I said, well, there's only two reasons, either gross incompetence or something far worse than that. And you know what the something is, and that's corruption. Because there's absolutely no way that that building could have cost $1.5 billion to build. And I did a chart, and I looked at other buildings, and I heard the numbers today, and I'm very impressed with Mr. Burnham, but Mr. Burnham, it's not his business. Mr. Burnham is in a different business. And the man he hired, who has done some work, I guess, has just been on the payroll for 2 days. So perhaps he'll be a great genius, and he'll bring down the cost to what it should be, which I think is about $700 million tops, and that's complete. But I did a little chart, and I looked at buildings that were comparable that I built, and I looked at fees also, architectural fees. The architectural fee for this building, and you have to understand a residential luxury building is far more complex than an open-floor office building to build. It's much more. You have many more bathrooms, you have many more kitchens, you have many more rooms. It's more complex. Office building is essentially open space.